Welcome to TimeBenders Talks, the ultimate destination for professional photographers and creative business people. Hosted by Peggy McCartha, a certified professional photographer with over 3.5 decades of experience and the visionary founder of the TimeBenders community. This weekly podcast brings you insightful conversations with business-savvy experts who also excel in their creative fields. Providing you with valuable tips and insights, our mission is to encourage, inspire, and educate you to empower you to find your success. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, you'll find practical advice and motivation to elevate your craft and business. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, David. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Hey, Peggy, it's great to be back with you. Appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. Well, you're kind of a staple on the podcast now. Every season, you have to be on at least once. It's a rule.
I love it. And by the way, right before we jumped on here, we were talking about how long we knew each other. I checked back in Slack. We first met June 27, 2023.
So I was right. It was over a year. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, because I knew I met you and Aisala right around the same time and decided I need to be friends with these people. So that is cool. We actually met because we purchased the same software. It's a pod or Cast Magic, which is to pull the content out of your podcast. And they had a Slack group. And I was like, wait, if I need podcast guests, wouldn't it be great to look at all these other podcasters that are in this? So I started one night, I think Merrick was gone. I just started like reading through people's posts and like checking out their podcast. So I said all that to say, David does have a podcast and you should check it out. And in the description, we will make sure that we get you a link to that.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm on to episode, I think we just recorded 235, 236, something like that. I interview mostly marketing service professionals and marketers of one sort or another. A, because that's the field I'm in. B, because I find the craft fascinating and I am always learning new stuff, even though I've been doing this since 1996.
I think it's fascinating because all it is psychology.
Mm-hmm.
All it is how do people think? Yeah. How do you want people to think about you? How do you what do people think? What is the archetype of your brand, of your business, of your person? Like when they first see you, what do they think? What does it make them like? That's really all marketing is just kind of getting out there and how do people think?
I'd agree and disagree. I mean, I think that is a huge component of marketing, but structure and organization around that and having the ability to message to achieve a specific outcome, which leverages psychology, right, is all part of the formula. And hopefully we'll actually dig into that because I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about, building systems in a business to achieve things like that. And psychology plays a huge role there.
Absolutely right. Well, of course you have to, but I mean, the bottom, the thread that ties everything together is really what people think about you. That's what I meant, of course. Yeah. And that was a great unplanned lead into talking about the structures and systems. So David, tell us a little bit about you. Let all of our listeners know why I quickly decided you were a super cool guy. And I want to say one thing, just because I don't want to forget again this week. If you are watching us on LinkedIn Live, I'm not going to see your comments. For some reason, LinkedIn Live's not showing up. So if you want us to, like G's here, hey G, if you want to be a part of our conversation, please head over to YouTube and then you can be part of our conversation. But David, please tell us all about what you do and how you got started.
And just quickly for folks who don't know where on YouTube to find us, where is that?
Oh, that's a good idea, isn't it? Well, I believe it is youtube.com/headshots by Peggy. I'm pretty sure my YouTube channel is Headshots by Peggy. I feel really silly right now, David.
Totally. Well, I think it's actually isn't under your TimeBenders brand, so that somebody could
Well,
just.
it
Yep.
is, but I think because you can't change the URL
Mm.
but I think if you look up TimeBenders, you'll see me. I think there's also a band named TimeBenders, but that's not us.
Brilliant idea for future reminders like that. Probably put a short
Maybe,
code or something,
maybe I'll have a link up here next week.
or a QR code.
A QR code. Oh my God.
Right, means to an end. Okay. So you wanted to know a little bit about me. I don't know which of the things that you learned about me prompted you to reach out, but I'll give you my history quickly. I started out marketing back in the mid 90s. I worked in the performing arts. I was an arts administrator, ran a performing arts center for the state of New York. After a very, very brief stint as a child dancer and actor on Broadway, I realized that wasn't for me, but I love the environment. So I worked in the arts up until around 2003. I jumped into the wine industry at that point, producing big trade shows and events, which is how you market to the trade. You host giant tastings and dinners at restaurants for wine buyers, and so I basically was putting on shows still, just like I was in my previous environment in the arts. And that led me to a trip across the country, moving from New York City to Portland, Oregon, where I live now. Started a Facebook ads agency in 2010 for wineries. And since 2018, I've been working around marketing strategy and building systems, building process for businesses, because I found a lot of challenges when I was simply running ads on Facebook. I lacked the ability to get my clients, the small businesses I was serving, to really think about anything beyond the stuff that I was doing, driving traffic for them. And I said, I have the ability to have greater impact in your world. So I just changed my positioning, right? Tapped into the psychology of, this guy is no longer a Facebook ads guy, right? Back to the psychology thing. This guy knows more about how to help me grow revenue, keep more of the revenue, get more recurring revenue, all of those things, because I changed the way that I entered into their world. And that was all very intentional. So that's what I do now.
I love that. I think that is the biggest thing. Like, people don't have. We know we need to market ourselves, and that's kind of where it stops.
Yeah.
They're like, a lot of times people think marketing is buying a business card and handing them out. Sometimes people think marketing is, doing a TikTok video, or sometimes people think marketing is buying an ad on, either, one of the meta platforms, but it's not. There is no one simple thing that is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, gosh, this is going to date me. I used to advertise in a magazine.
They still exist, by the way.
Okay.
I got one right here.
But and they tell you, or they used to tell you, hey, you have to run an ad for a good 6 months to a year before you even think of seeing any return on that. And, it wasn't a cheap thing to run an ad in a magazine. And so, and I did get, a little bit here and a little bit there that I think, okay, I think they might have found me from that magazine. But I'll never forget this. 4 years later, after I'd stopped using that magazine or paying for ads in that magazine, someone called me and they booked me for a job that probably paid for all of the years I was advertising in that magazine. 4 years later. And the reason I know is because they cut that coupon out and said they magneted it to their refrigerator and they brought it into me. They were like, this is how we found you. And I was like, wow. So I guess the problem, I don't know if it's the problem, but I think to our minds, it's the problem, is marketing isn't a quick, there's never a, I do this and I get this. It's, I do this and I do this and I do this, and then this happens, and so I think that is where people get really frustrated. Is that what you see?
That's absolutely a big part of it. First, back when there were magazines as a dominant marketing channel, right? Times were simpler back then, right? I was talking to a guy last night about sort of the history of advertising, paid advertising, and marketing services, and talking about what it looked like a century ago when there were advertising agents who would post bills, right? Nobody knows what that means, like post no bills or whatever the thing is on that's on walls these days, but it would be basically like put up posters or put up an announcement. There was that. There was newspapers, and you would take either a space ad or a classified, and that was pretty much it, right? We didn't have broadcast yet. Then we had radio, then we had television, then we started with all of this online stuff,
Right?
And things just got unwieldy. And so look, you were talking about magazines. G posted something about people think just social media posts are marketing, and I think that's whatever a business looks at and they says, okay, I know what I as a consumer am doing to see other businesses out there. I guess I should do that. Or I see what my competitor is doing, and now I'm going to do that too. Well, there's no logic, rhyme, or reason to that. For most of it, what was the magazine you were advertising? You were advertising photography services.
I was advertising photography.
What was the magazine?
It was an LGBTQ local magazine in San Diego.
And why that magazine?
Because I had found myself in a position where somebody had called me and they said, hey, I wanted to know if you would take a picture of me in my car. And I was like, sure. And then talked for a long time and finally said, well, could you take a picture of my partner and his car also? And I was like, yes. And he was like, we're not business partners. And I was like, okay. And I hung up the phone and I called a friend of mine and I said, this is 2006. Why is this man so scared to ask me if I'll take a picture of him and his partner? Mm-hmm. And my friend said, there's businesses that are like, that won't.
Yeah.
And that, this is dangerous. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because I thought in my silly little mind by, 2006, 2008, we were, Southern California, we were not doing things like that. Anyway, 2024.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started making a point to let that community know that I was a safe place, that they are welcome to come to my studio. So I was like, well, I'm going to take out an ad, let them know, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm not part of your community, but your community doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Come on over.
So you had that message that you wanted to get out. How many other photographers were advertising in that magazine?
None that did family style photography.
Yeah. So there was something very intentional about you choosing that particular channel to get a message to a specific audience that you wanted to speak to and say, I'm here and I'm available for you. And that's often, and this is the key to where I was going with my thinking about all these different channels. That's often not a consideration for most businesses. Most businesses just think, well, what's everybody else doing? What's the popular thing? Where are people? Let's just get our name out there. And there's a tremendous inefficiency to that approach.
And that goes back to, you have to know who your ideal clients are, where they hang out, what they need to know about you.
And so, we'll go back to the psychology thing again, tapping into the psychology of how somebody thinks, how somebody makes a decision. We often, there's a widely misquoted quote. We were talking about this in a mastermind recently, and a bunch of us looked it up to find the real quote. No, the real quote is unwieldy. So I'm going to paraphrase the real quote. Robert Collier, who was a early copywriter, he talked about this idea of getting in the middle of the conversation that's going on in your prospect's mind, which is a far more eloquent way to say whatever the heck he said. But the idea is we want to be able to show up at a key point, a trigger moment in someone's life when they have just had an experience, and we can say, we're here to help solve that, problem, or we're here to help you achieve that desire at that moment. And so there's a lot of very intentional messaging, showing up in the right place, in front of the right person, at the right time, etc., that taps into that psychology. Otherwise, just putting out, what do they call it, hanging your shingle out and telling people you exist is, again, highly, highly inefficient. So this is I think the opening part of systematizing marketing, systematizing revenue growth, is how do you attract the right people into your business? And you're absolutely right? Having clarity around who it is that you are serving, and then having consistency around speaking to them, around showing up in front of them, not doing what most businesses also do when they try something out, is they try it out for a little while. Gosh, that doesn't work. Let's try something else. And they jump somewhere else, or they try a different message, and there's a lack of consistency. And that's problematic.
Mm-hmm. Because it is tough to, because you don't see an instant return most of the time. I mean, every once in a while, you're going to throw something out there and somebody's going to need your service at that moment. And they see it, they're happy, they take it. But that's not what happens on a regular basis.
Well, that's another place where I think we don't take as much control as business owners as we have the ability to.
Okay.
So there's I'm generalizing here, but there's two different approaches to marketing and to advertising. One is brand marketing, telling people, hey, I'm here. This is what I do in case you ever need it. Now you know. And then there's direct response marketing, which for most businesses is a much smarter way to go. And I'll explain what it is in a moment, because it really focuses down your budget, your time budget, your monetary budget, to some very specific actions. So direct response is basically getting, as I said, the right message in front of the right person at the right time, telling them exactly what to do, and then leading them to the outcome of, all right, here's where you sign up, here's where you check out, here's where you book the appointment, whatever the mechanism is in your business to get to the sale. And so looking at this idea of I'm glad that we have a studious
Yes.
audience member here who's like really leaning in. That's great. The idea is, how do you, as the business, take control of the process of the buyer, right? So the buyer is, we know how humans buy, we know how humans behave. How do we tap into that in order to guide them to the logical outcome of becoming a customer, patient, member, whatever it is that we call them in our business?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the mechanism known as direct response marketing. The place we see this most often, I mean, old school was direct mail, an offer with a reply card. You fill it out. Maybe you put your credit card number in. Maybe you enclose a check. Maybe you enclose. Do you remember what SASE is?
No.
Self-addressed stamped.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so sometimes it would say, like, enclose an SASE and we'll send you the thing, right?
Uh-huh.
So that is a mechanism that was classic back with direct mail and with classified ads, and we have that today. We have a Facebook ad to an order form. Maybe it's a Ryan, what's his name, Ryan, Ryan Dice over at Digital Marketer used or popularized this term. I don't know whether he coined it, of a tripwire. Maybe Frank Kern coined it. I don't know which one of them did. A tripwire being an initial purchase that is basically helping fund the ad campaign. Go ahead.
$9.95 and you'll get all of this.
Right.
Oh, but wait.
Yeah. Well,
today for the next hour, you can get this for only $59.99 more. Oh, wait, in the next 90 minutes. Yeah, that one.
Well, I mean, that's the TV pitchman version of Ron Popeil or Billy Mays, infomercial approach to it, which is based, by the way, on, carnival barkers and salesmen at Atlantic City's boardwalk who were pitching stuff, right? Classic model, because you're saying we're giving you more than you could possibly want. I'm talking about something slightly different, which is this concept of building an email list, for example, or a mailing list of some sort. There's two ways to do it. One is give something away for free, right? So opt into my list, and in exchange for your email address, so I can follow up and try to sell you stuff, I'm going to dangle this free thing in front of you, a webinar, a PDF, whatever, right? An email course. So that's one way of doing it. But if you're running ads to get people to sign up for something, wouldn't it be great if you could cover the cost of those ads? So these $7, $27, whatever, low priced offers have a real, value to them. They feel like they're solving a real problem. We talk about those problems having to be both urgent and important. Otherwise, people aren't going to say, sure, I'll grab my credit card and give you $27.
Right.
And it's what we call a self-liquidating offer, because it covers the cost of the traffic to get there. This is classic for how magazines typically build their subscriber base, right? They would give something away to get the subscriber the first time. They're not in the subscriber business. They're in the renewal business, because it's the renewal where they make their money. And so if you think about, that as a mechanism, well, suddenly you're dangling something out there that a buyer wants, not a freebie seeker who opts into a free email list. Okay. And again, I'm generalizing here, but you kind of hopefully are following the logic of what I'm talking about. If you say, you have to spend money on this solution, well, now you have a list of people who are buyers who will likely be interested in spending more money with you if you have the right solution to the next problem that they've uncovered.
Because once you get them to get that credit card out the first time, it's easier to get them to do it, because of two reasons. First of all, they're willing, they have the means and they're willing to actually invest in themselves. But also, they feel like what you had was valuable. They showed you that what you offered, this little piece, was valuable. So if you can offer them something of even more value, then it's logical that there's a good chance, a higher than average, chance that they would take that next step as well.
But the thing is, you're right about all of that. And most businesses then stop there, right? They don't then think about, okay, what can we do to control or have more control over guiding them to the next thing, right? So most businesses will say, well, logically, we did such a great job with this, they're going to want more from us and they'll come looking for it. And you're a human being. I am too. We don't behave that way.
And there's times that I've wanted to look for things and I can't find them. And I'm like, am I not going to get an email for these guys? Like, I'm going to have to make another choice if I can't remember how to get a hold of them. And I really liked this XYZ and I can't remember the name, but it was the one in the yellow box. And, surely they'll send me an email.
Yeah.
No.
I have, so whether it's the frequency of emails, the frequency of posting on social media, the frequency of direct mail, we as businesses are far too concerned about making our prospect or our customer feel overwhelmed with too much communication, that we go in the opposite direction and do too little. I know a
I'm
guy.
guilty.
I know a guy who's a PR expert in the wine industry, and I cannot believe he does this. He sends out a quarterly email newsletter. When I see this in my inbox, I'm like, who's that? Oh yeah, that's that stupid guy who only communicates 4 times a year.
Oh my God, that's terrible. Oh my God. See, I'm better than that. I at least touch base every month. But no, I do. I fear that. I'm like, I hate getting spammed by people. I hate getting too much. I don't want people to think that I'm that person. I don't want, that. And so I tend to pull back. And that's not right. We shouldn't be thinking that way. That's a good thing. Good point to take.
I think about it this way. First, with email, we can unsubscribe. With physical mail, which I'm a huge proponent of, and I think far too few businesses take advantage of it. And this is the best time ever to use physical mail because there's far less competition in that inbox than there is in the electronic inbox, right? I'm thinking about mail that I get from companies like, I don't know, the local franchisee, maybe it's not a franchise, of Anderson Windows.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I get mail from them. I live in a 112-year-old house in Portland, Oregon. Right. We probably need new windows. We probably, have the original windows in our home. And so I get physical mail from them probably 2-3 times a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's expensive.
Yeah.
But you know what? They wouldn't keep doing it if they're not making money from doing it.
True. And they know that your house needs new windows.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that, my home is targeted based on the neighborhood I'm in, the type of home I'm in, there are ways for it to not be as expensive. I think they're probably using the U.S. Postal Service has something called the EDDM, Every Door Direct Mail program, which is the cheapest way to deliver stuff. Basically, it's just you have it delivered to every house in a single carrier route, and that's the sort of cheapest delivery way. But they wouldn't keep doing this if it didn't convert into sales that made it cost effective for them and profitable for them. And that's really the thing that I would look at is, why is somebody advertising for 12 months, 18 months with a single ad on Facebook, or consistently paying to have ads on Google if it's not even at high prices,
right,
for those clicks, if it's not of value to them and they have worked out the economics, they know their numbers to know that this is the right investment to get the customer in. And then they have means, once they have the customer, to continue to communicate to increase the value of that customer, either getting them to buy more frequently or getting them to increase the value of the next transaction that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I honestly, I'd never considered. But as far as direct mail, because I at least glance through that stuff before I throw it in the trash. And if something were to catch my eye, I would read it. Which is honestly sometimes more than I do with my inbox, with my email. Sometimes I'm like, archive.
Well, I think it was while we were recording that you shared the story of somebody putting something up on their refrigerator and months later calling you, right?
Yeah.
That is the benefit of direct mail, is that I
it was
collect
it was 4 years later.
Yeah. And you know what? As you were saying that, I'm thinking, oh, I have things that I've clipped out and I have sitting on my refrigerator, and it's probably been more than 4 years. But I know the business, and I know that when I need them, they're the ones I'm going to call.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is, if you think about, you flip through this thing, and I don't even see some emails that people say, "Hey, I sent you that email." It's like, oh, it's not on the screen, and I didn't scroll down far enough to look for it.
Exactly.
That's not what happens with direct mail or with a magazine that's sitting on my desk or any of those. And so thinking about the way that your prospects interact with different channels that you're, trying to communicate through, and how you need to behave, as a result. So I interesting. Well, so we got to think about our audience in general, how they behave.
Right.
Individuals, we all have slightly different behavior, but if you look across the board at the audience you're trying to reach, how do they tend to behave? Where do they hang out, as you said earlier, etc. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, like, my husband and I, we treat our email completely different. I feel like, I think he's crazy. But any given time you look at his phone and it says 99999 on there. And any given time you look at my phone, it says maybe 0, or 5, 10, because, I open it up and I, quickly archive everything that I feel deemed junk. And then the things that I'm like, oh, I need to actually read this, I'll leave unread so that when I have the time, I can go back and tend to it. But you have to think that, if the two of us are that different in how we handle the email, then you and I probably handle email differently as well. And so we can't think that we are sending too many things or that we're not doing this, because we don't know who's even going to see it. And we may send something 10 times before the one person says, like, oh, there's there's that thing I've been looking for. There's no way to know. So yeah, G made a comment. There it is. I was trying to put it back up. Yes, we do need a conversation.
My wife and I have different email habits as well. And I mean, I have the email habit of a marketer because I want to get on every single list. And so I, probably a little bit closer to your husband, although I do have some automation that clears out my my emails. So right now I'm looking at 495 in my inbox. In one inbox, in my business inbox, where I don't sign up for any email list, I have 5 messages. So
yeah, I guess for me, I just know my brain, and anything over 30 or 40, I'm like, that's too much to handle. I'll just leave it alone. Just like, I'll never see it. So that's me.
But I think your point is well taken. The number of communications that I get from the people I am most likely to interact with is a much higher number, because they are constantly reminding me that they exist. And that's why, you were counseled, whether it was, I mean, I think it's sort of, I'm jaded as a marketer, so I think it's sort of a ploy to sell a year's worth of ads, in one sale, right? Well, you need the consistency to show up so that when people need you, they remember you. Years ago, I worked very briefly, because I'm terrible at sales, with a company that did advertising on grocery store shopping carts. So the little flip thing, on where the child seat. And the line that we were supposed to give was, you have the same consumer returning to the same store at least once a week. And over the course of 6 months, Mr. Realtor, or, Miss Insurance salesperson or whatever, they're going to see you, and that repeat exposure is going to turn into customers, right? And that's the logic.
Right.
And I think there is some value to that, but having better control over it in a place where you have somebody who's opted into an email list, who's raised their hand and said, yes, I want this, as opposed to just showing up in, some random place, a billboard that they drive by twice a day that they totally ignore until
their brain doesn't even see.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is literally our brains, we don't see everything. Our brain fills in things. So just having, like, I remember, again, dating myself, banner ads, place your banner ad on our website. And that's, people just tune that out. So you have to be really, so, what systems would you say are the best, or the most effective, or how do we find what's the best and most effective for our situation?
Well, I'd say that in general, there are, regardless of what business we're in, there are frameworks to the way that buyers buy the thing that we sell. Or if we're not in a, if we're a nonprofit service organization, that donors give to organizations like ours, whatever we do, there's a framework to the way that it works. And most organizations, businesses, etc., don't tap into that framework. So I'll give you a fairly standard one, which is service providers. You and I both fall under that umbrella, right? Service providers. Service provider typically has a selling process that is very different from a retail exchange where somebody walks into a store, makes a decision, buys right on the spot, right? Usually there's a consideration process. Maybe there's a conversation. Maybe there's, a consideration of which solution I'm going to go with, etc. And so the framework there is to attract the attention of that segment of the market that is going to be the best fit, the right fit for your service, which is not everyone, as you pointed out, Peggy. Capture them as a lead, right? So get them onto a list so that you have the ability to follow up with them and nurture that relationship into a sales conversation. Some are going to convert to sales right away. Some are not, right? So you then have to have structure around, what do we do with those people who don't become a customer right away? Well, have a mechanism to continue to stay in front of them, reminding them of your value, reminding them of the problem that they have, reminding them of the desire that they have, etc. And when they're ready, they'll come. And if you think about what the sales cycle is in whatever business you're in, sometimes that's weeks, sometimes it's months, sometimes it's 4 years, right?
Apparently.
Then there's other things that you have the ability to systematize as well, which is really about, once that sale is made, how do you retain that relationship with that client? How do you increase the frequency? How do you increase the value of future purchases, or whatever the model is that you have? Maybe it's a one-time purchase business. How do you extract referrals from them through a systematic way so that the cost of advertising, or the cost of your time to get more new people in, is shifted to a system of extracting, orchestrating referrals from the people who already know you?
And it's easier to get people that already know you and already like you and are already referring you to come back and be a repeat customer. I do know that, there is no true loyalty. We all love certain brands and we buy other things from time to time. But if a brand that I love is running a marketing campaign, I'm going to be really responsive to that over a brand that does similar things to them that I don't have any history with.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The other piece of this that I sort of skipped over is, because everything I've talked about can be systematized, including getting referrals, right? A lot of businesses believe that they are built off of referrals, but have no actual control over that process. And you can at least build mechanisms to get to hand to your customers, or hand to your strategic partners to get them to refer you. But most businesses kind of just don't do that, right? They just kind of think that they're doing such a great job that it'll naturally happen. And we want, I think, more consistency and predictability in our businesses than that. But there was one other piece that I was going to talk about, which is, I think, the element that very few businesses think about. But if once you hear what I'm going to say, you'll think, oh, well, I know all these great examples of this, and that's designing customer experience into your business so that there's consistency there. And there's classic examples of this: Disney, Nordstrom, Zappos, all of these companies that have very intentionally built-in customer experience. We do workshops with business owners where we talk about this framework that I'm talking about right now, and we walk them through all of the elements of what they have the potential to do in their business, and think about, what customer experience have you had as a customer tell us about a business that really dazzled you and how it made you feel. And we spend 20, 30 minutes with people telling these excited stories about, oh, I went to this restaurant and then they followed up, all of these great stories. And then we say, okay, great. How can you create that in your business? And everybody sits around in the room scratching their head. Well, that doesn't apply to my business. It absolutely does, and it can. And building what we call surprise, delight, and wow into your process actually has huge impact on retaining existing customers, getting them to buy more, to fall in love with you. So even though there is that competition that you've talked about a few times out there, that they're going to ignore that competition because they have a relationship with you, that they feel an affinity for you, right? And it helps you upsell, cross-sell, orchestrate referrals, etc.
And I've always believed that. Simply put, under promise and over deliver, but be creative about it. Don't always give everybody blah blah blah, but like as a photographer, I'm there, with my client for good hour. So we're talking, like, I know different things, and maybe I find out they like XYZ. Well, maybe I incorporate that in some, image or some, whatever it is. But really becoming a listener and doing just the little things that doesn't take you very much time or energy or money, can make a person feel so cared about.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's like, hey, I know you were talking about your grandma last week. How's she doing? It's just the simple little things of actually listening and giving them an experience that your company cares. Now, if you're that's fine if you're a service provider, but maybe you have a product, you still can do those same things. Okay, G has a question for us. Are you ready?
Yeah, I've read the question.
Okay.
It's a good question, but do you want to read it out loud for others?
Do you believe business owners are so moved by the shining objects, social media, that they miss the importance of customer experience, the customer journey?
So I think the answer is absolutely 100%, because we're all human beings and we all have some version of shiny object syndrome. There's very few people who are disciplined enough to not be distracted by some new idea. Even the most disciplined business owners I know, they'll go and they'll read a book and they'll go, I just read this fascinating book and I wonder how we can apply it to whatever we're doing. And it's like the total opposite direction of what we'd agreed we're doing, right? So yes, I think it's human nature to get distracted by things. But here's where I think the problem really lies, and this is at the core of why I shifted from being a Facebook ads agency to a marketing strategy consultant. The model of marketing services and the model of the way that businesses think about marketing or advertising or whatever they think marketing is, I think is very much a broken model, because we typically think about a single channel or a single solution or a handful of things, as we were talking about earlier, right? The places where businesses choose to go to get the word out about their existence. But we don't do it strategically. We think about channels, we think about tactics, but we don't think about big picture. And in my industry, there's very few people who do what I do, which is we're agnostic about the solution, and we are in the business of guiding a company, a business, an organization through thinking about all of the possibilities, thinking about how your actions in your business, your systems in your business tie to revenue. So nobody's thinking about it in this way, from this angle. We're thinking much more closely to the way that we have been trained as business owners to buy marketing, to invest our time in marketing. And that is, if I'm buying marketing or advertising from somebody, I'm typically buying it from a salesperson who sells one or very few things. I've done this as a business owner. I have bought Valpak ads where I'm buying coupons, in a mail.
Mm-hmm.
What does the person who sells the Valpak ads sell? That's it. That's all they sell, right? So if they're coming in as the expert telling me this is a really good investment for you, I don't have a discussion with them about weighing the pros and cons of this versus another thing, because that's not the agenda that they have. And so we've been trained, I think, to really think the wrong way about how to invest time and money in our marketing.
I agree 100 million%. I think we all need to take the time to reset our mindset in this whole marketing realm. I think it's almost just a word that's thrown around now, that doesn't really have any. Most people don't understand what it is or how to do it or anything. It's just like, oh, I need to get on my marketing. I'm going to work on my marketing this week.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Yeah, I'm going to work on my marketing. Okay. What exactly are you going to do with your marketing? Well, marketing.
Yeah. It sounds funny, but it's really true. I do some networking here locally in Portland, and I talk to lots of business owners, and they use this phrase that really, I said it earlier before, really bothers me, which is, we're going to get our name out there.
Yeah.
And so I'll follow up and then what happens? Well, then people know we exist. And then what happens? Well, because they know they exist, they're logically going to flock toward them. And no, that's not how it works. And so there has to be a lot more intentional structure to what businesses do when it comes to marketing, and understanding that different paths result in different outcomes. And so how can you look at all of the different options that exist out there, or narrow down the most logical different options based on clear decisions like, this is the narrow audience we are choosing to tell people we serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I phrase that very specifically that way, right? Choose to tell people we serve rather than we serve, because you can still keep serving other audiences, but you want a message to a specific audience.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I don't know how many conversations I've had about niching down, and I'm a photographer. I can't niche down. I do everything. I'm like, of course we do everything. Of course we do. But do we want to market to everyone? Do we want to speak to everyone? No, we want to speak to these people. And then these people are going to see, oh, I can relate to that. I want what those guys are getting.
Yeah.
Niching down doesn't mean you're not going to serve any people, but your ideal client. It means, where are you going to put the most of your time, your money, and your energy focusing on? Because that's, it's, otherwise you're just throwing it at the wall. Let's see what sticks.
Yep.
And it's.
And if anybody has been listening to this conversation, they know that neither you nor I believe in that approach.
I think they might have come to that conclusion. David, it has, as always, been fun. What is the last tip that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Gosh, I mean,
your wisdom, not to put you on the spot or anything,
yeah.
but this is like what the whole podcast is going to boil down to, what you're about to say, David.
Man, that's a lot of pressure. Well, I think it may feel a little redundant, but the importance of thinking strategically about what you're doing, your business in general, and life in general, right, helps you get the outcomes that you're after a lot more efficiently than just sort of aimlessly trying one thing after another, right? So strategy over tactics, or as my business partner once said, and it cracks me up, strategy eats tactics for breakfast.
True.
Yes.
That's funny. Well, thank you so much. I think that this was a really good podcast. We covered a bunch of things today. We talked about how important it is to, first of all, understand what marketing is, who you're marketing to, what systems you have in place to make this effective, and follow up. I mean, we didn't say the word follow up, but follow up is part of marketing.
Yeah, I use the term nurture, but yes,
Right.
follow up, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, because you do all these cartwheels and jumping jacks to get people's attention, and then you turn around and walk away. Wait, I thought, and so we need to make sure that we nurture them and let them know that, hey, we actually will take your money. You actually can come over here. We're not going to abandon you. So, David, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And in the comments, you're on LinkedIn right now, so leave a comment in there so people can follow you on LinkedIn. Is there any other platform people like people to follow you on?
I think these days, in the middle of 2024, LinkedIn is probably the safest place for me to be. So that's where I can be found. Yep.
And everywhere else, I'll put that in the comments as well. But thank you so much. And everyone else, I will see you next week. Bye, guys. Maybe I will. There we go. All right, now, bye.
Thanks for listening to TimeBenders Talks. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Being a creative business person doesn't have to be lonely. Schedule a tour of the TimeBenders community today and discover how you can join this amazing group of creative professionals and be a part of a supportive and encouraging community where everyone thrives and succeeds. Click on the link in the description.